district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text, that trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome to the GOAT District. I can't even believe that it's week 14 and we're talking playoffs already. But you got to believe it, man, and you got to get your rosters ready, and that's what we're here to do this week. This week, we're going to talk about different things, touch on different aspects, but if we're going to kind of look at it, look at last-minute roster adjustments in the market, usually we look at specific players, but we're going to kind of, see how you can tweak your teams if you still have the opportunity to trade in your dynasty leagues. If there's guys that you've lost confidence in that, maybe they haven't been performing lately, or they're sketchy, they're not consistent. A lot of questions, right? You start questioning your team, Dan, like way more than you normally do. And sometimes you even outthink yourself. Am I right?
Oh, definitely right. Yeah. The time of year where every decision is critical, it can make you or break you. And so that's when it's easy to overthink it. For sure. And I hope you're recovered. We were on the open bar last night with a good bunch of dudes, and just a good time. But man, did we laugh! I was hurting after from all the laughing. Yes, for sure. Yeah, those guys, J. Mike and Gabe, man, what a team, and they always bring a lot of fun to every podcast they do. So, well worth checking it out if you haven't ever seen the open bar for some strange reason. Make sure you get over there and fix that. Yeah, for sure. They were off for a bit. They took a bit of a break and came back last night for the first time. So go check that out. A lot of good discussions in between the laughs, but definitely an entertaining one. So hopefully you check that out and enjoy it. And tonight, because it's a special week, we bring back two of our favorite guests. I'll go to our friend Nelson. Nelson, welcome back to the GOAT District, buddy.
Thanks, boys. Great to be here as always. Thank you for the invitation.
So, pretty important time right now for you and the Dynasty Depot. So, for those who haven't heard, just I guess it'd be the opposite, right? If somebody's already heard, you remind them. If somebody hasn't heard, let them know what the Dynasty Depot is about, what's going on right now. I know there's some important dates to take note of.
Yeah, thanks, JD. Really important. Dynasty Depot is an auction site for FFPC fantasy teams, dynasty teams. We are currently taking memberships. We are 3 weeks away from our January 4th launch of our auctions. We're expecting 200 to 300 teams on the site within the first week or two.
Wow.
And we're really excited about it. We're doing memberships, and for you and all of your great listeners, we're going to do a promo tonight. If you go to dynastydepot.com, select an all-pro membership, and what that's going to get you is text notifications. Every time a new team is posted, you'll get a text. You want to bid on it, go ahead and bid on it. If you use the promo code LEAGUEMATES, one word, it'll get you $75 off. It's costing you $24. You'll have Dynasty Depot bid, buy, and sell rights. You'll have Roster Watches exclusive rankings, and it'll get you into our leaderboard, which I've talked to you about before, which is probably one of the most fascinating things about it. Every team you buy on Dynasty Depot will hit our leaderboard. Your points will transfer weekly from FFPC to the Dynasty Depot leaderboard. It'll be 4 categories: best ball, standard, super flex, and super flex best ball. So say, JD, you buy a $250 team, you get it for auction for $50. You spin it around, do your JD magic on the team, and it hits our leaderboard. So at the end of the year, your points will add up against everybody else that bought a team in that category. And first place is a main event team where technically, right, you spend $50, you go ahead and win the main event with your free seat. That's $500,000. Pretty good. Second place, $500 dynasty team. So you're getting a game within the game, which is really exciting. So we're pumped right now.
Some Chris Moneymaker action right there. So yeah, I keep saying this is a game changer if you're in the dynasty. I know for me it is. It's going to change. I keep talking about how I've like way too many rosters, and I definitely do. So as I trim them down, my focus is definitely going to turn even more to FFPC teams, just because of this extra, added value that I get by building my rosters on that site. On top of it just being awesome altogether. Dan, before we bring in our next guest, anything to add? I know you're pretty excited about this. I know we've got our memberships ready and we're kind of raring to go. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's like, Nels is sitting here telling me it's 3 weeks away, and I'm like this junkie, just going, come on, man, let's go. The regular season just ended. There's a lot of teams that are going to be up for sale. Let's, but of course nobody can sell off their teams until the actual regular season ends. So, the fortunate thing is Nels is going to be right there with his Dynasty Depot ready to capture those teams and get them up there where you can buy them.
We are, Danny. I think the cool thing about it is, and we've talked about this before, is the season's over. We've created a way to have action in the off season.
Yep.
And that keeps it going, because when you buy, if you draft a maiden team or you whatever, and you have a new team, it's a new toy, right? So now you have new opportunities to move players. You're going to have new draft picks coming up. One of the cool things that we talked about was, say you're not a big spender and you love to play in a $500 league, but that's a little out of your range. Well, you might be able to bargain hunt, get yourself a $500 team, which wins $3,000 in prize money for first place. You might be able to find one for $125, $140 that somebody's looking to move. So it's a way for you to step up your game also, and we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, man. So are we. And, you got to build those teams to get on that leaderboard. And one way to do it, and we keep bringing this guy back, Dan, we love him. We love the material he brings, the goodness he brings, and just an all-around good dude. Jordan MacNamara, welcome back to the GOAT District. Buddy, how are you, man?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. I got to say, Dan's promo on Twitter of this, it's well worth the $25,000 I have to pay him each year as a hype man. So I definitely like that.
Still waiting for my check. I mean, sure you got my correct address?
So Jordan, I know you're out on Football Guys. What's happening with you? You've got what's going on with the analytics of Dynasty. Just let the people know what's happening in Jordan world right now.
Yeah, you guys got a behind the scenes look at it. I had a mini crisis going on. I'm in the process of finishing up Analytics of Dynasty 3.0. So this is 2021 edition, and I got some really unique features this year, and I'm doing some really different things in terms of studying market value in a way that I don't think anyone's ever done, and actually looking at like how players move in valuation, because there's a lot of misconceptions on the market. You see these Twitter debates, you see these Twitter threads, and a lot of certainty where there isn't any, and there shouldn't be, and we should think about that. And a lot of different player stuff. Like I wish every year I get to this point where it's like, if I knew in December, if I knew in April when I was drafting in rookie drafts, what I know now after writing this edition of the Analytics of Dynasty, I would have just crushed rookie drafts last year. And I think I did fine, but like I could have absolutely exploited them. And it's funny each year, like I sort of get to that, and then we get to where we are, and we're just rolling it over into the next season. So
we get like a taste, like a little like lick, just a lick of what
About the rookie draft stuff.
Yeah.
Got my pen out, JD. I got my pen out.
Yeah.
Writer downer.
There's I'll just say, like, I think by and large we should and I try and do this, and then I'm gonna be clinical about it this year, like almost assassin like, but I'm gonna treat player profiles like they're absolutely interchangeable. And so what that means is really, like, if you have a scenario last year where you have 4 or 5 guys, what was it? It was 4 guys in they had basically 5 running backs, right? That were sort of dominating the top of rookie drafts. Edwards-Helaire, Taylor, Swift, Dobbins, and Akers. I think, and there was quarterbacks too. Like, there was 3 top 10 quarterbacks. I think the play is just treat them like they're interchangeable. Like, don't pick favorites and take the cheapest one. And take whatever you can get on top of that, because what I think and I don't regret this because I'm still a Jonathan Taylor fan, and I'm not. This isn't outcome bias. This is really, man, I wish I had this tool in my toolbox last year. If I think the move, instead of taking Taylor at like 101, 102, something like that, would have been to get to like 7, and then and taken basically the last running back there. And then gotten to, and you could absolutely have done this, gotten a late first out of that as well, and taken Herbert, right? I think that's really the way that I would have done this. And I regret not having the research that I did last year. I regret it because I think Herbert was basically the skeleton key how it all turned out. But I'll just say, like, and you see it now, like, there's no reason when a situation like this with Herbert, and I had this in a startup draft, I wasn't like the biggest Justin Herbert fan. And again, if I had to go back, I would be an enormous Justin Herbert fan just based on what I found. But there was like a 6-round startup gap and a startup draft that I did between him and Tua, which is just absolutely unreasonable, right? Like, it was just the clearest value of like almost all last year in terms of all the draft picks I made. Like, it was so blatantly obvious that Justin Herbert was the best pick, and that rarely happens. Like, I rarely look at it and I'm like, yeah, this guy's definitely the best pick. Like, it's just not sort of how I operate, but it was so clear with Herbert. And so that's a lot of like what I'm looking at, and just trying to really identify those situations and play profiles even better going forward.
Can I ask you one question, Jordan, before you guys move on?
Yeah, for sure.
So I love what you had to say, but let's take last year, and when CEH landed with the Chiefs on draft night, he immediately moved up to the 101.
It was the easiest fade of any 101 ever.
Right. So that's what you're saying. That's an easy fade for you there. So you obviously would love to move off the 101, move back to 106, 107, where hopefully, you'll land Akers there, or Lamb or whatever, plus another one, and you would have been happy with that.
Yeah, and I didn't take
hindsight, obviously you'd be happy with that.
I took Taylor at 1. When I had the shot, I took Taylor at 1.
I did too.
Over Burrow too.
A lot of people did. I think it was pretty split.
I did.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. So that would have been, and I just, like, I go back and I look at it, and that would have been that would have been what I would have done different. So, and I think there's a lot of it, like this year, I think it's going to be really, I hate to use the word exploitable, but really actionable this year, because I think you're going to get a lot of like same profiles, especially if it's going to be as good of a wide receiver class as we expect. I think we're going to be able to really put in an action plan that has a lot of value in it.
And it's kind of that whole tier approach, right? As opposed to like rankings where you know, and it's funny because we're quick to say when we're talking about like, let's say 2-3 years ago, the New England Patriots running back situation, take the cheapest guy. They're all the same. They all have the same, upside, that kind of thing. But then when it comes to like, you're talking about that first round of a rookie draft, we don't necessarily approach it that way. We're so focused on the individuals that we've fallen in love with over the off season, and then we're just kind of like zeroed in on those guys, like me just taking Pittman everywhere. Like, which is fine. And I've moved a lot of those shares in a lot, but I missed on Jefferson's, missed on, Herbert in Superflex, going for like a Dobbins, like you said, looking back, you'd like to go a different way, but that's definitely a great tidbit.
The wide receiver tier last year with Judy and Lamb at the top. Okay, hindsight, of course, you'd like to move back to 204, 205 and grab Ayuk and a ton more to give up that pick now. So I guess that's what you're saying there, right?
And so, like, the clear play to me is I did this a bit at receiver, and I wish I had gone like full on. And again, it would have worked out. So there's a little bit of that going on, but I do think in terms of like acquiring, I think in terms of dynasty that the key to it, especially in rookie drafts, and we can sort of talk about this. We might get into this topic a little bit later. Especially in rookie drafts, is to don't care about year one. You're not trying to take a huge loss, but by and large, and this is something I'm looking at, like the hit rate in year one is pretty low. And we're, of all the narratives that I pumped going into the offseason, coming into the season, that's the thing I was most wrong about, was that COVID would just harpoon, especially rookie wide receivers. And I was flat wrong on that. So, but historically that has not happened, right? Like historically round one wide receivers don't hit all that often. It's a pretty low number. And so that would sort of be the thing that I would look at, right? Is don't care about year one and just take good profiles. And what you're doing with it is you're backfilling. And so like Ayuk was a clear value guy. But one thing that I did is I didn't have like a great feeling about the wide receiver class. And I think by and large, I think that's the historically appropriate approach is to not have strong feelings, because ADP hasn't really been that it hasn't really been that significant in terms of predicting within groups, right? So like if you look at first round wide receivers, like ADP isn't really that significant, right? So when you think about that, you're like, okay, then why are we pumping all the early guys, right? That would sort of be the counter. And so for what my play was in a number of spots, instead of taking Judy, instead of taking Lamb, it was to move back and take Jefferson or Rager. And I did that in a couple of spots. You know, you got seconds to basically move back 2 spots. And that was like just clear money to me, because I thought they were just essentially random. And so, and that's sort of the thing that I take out of it. And I'm going to be much more, even more so on that this year, is really going to be the play for me.
So can I ask you this, Jordan?
Yes.
If just taking that approach, would your tiers have been the same though? And would that have given you the result that you wanted? Because like, wouldn't CD and Judy kind of be in their own tier if we think back coming into that class? And then it was kind of like the next group of guys were like a lot bigger group. Whereas now you're probably grouping them all together. So do you understand my question? Does that make sense?
I do. I had Rager at 1, so it didn't apply. I had Rager over Lamb and Judy. But I also had I had someone that I really, really trust on metrics pitch me on Justin Jefferson and make just a outstanding case. And I really broke it down, and because I was like, kind of didn't know what to do with Justin Jefferson. He made this outstanding case, and it was a podcast appearance, and then I talked to him a lot after. And basically my question was, at their cost, who's the player that you could see yourself rostering in 100% of your leagues? And his question without blinking was Justin Jefferson, and sort of explained it to me. I dove in even more. And the case for the case for like Judy and Lamb over Justin Jefferson wasn't like it. Again, when you sort of look at them, I just bin the guys. So what I was doing was taking guys that you look at where they broke out, what age they broke out. And I just put guys that were 18 and 19 years old. I just put them together, and then I grouped them by pedigree. And when you did that, you got 4 of them, right? You've got Rager, Jefferson, Lamb, and Judy. But there was a big spread there, I think, in the market. It was pretty wide, right? That Jefferson really, I mean, it was clear that he was 4, and you could argue that he was in another tier, right? I mean, he sort of teetered there. And so that was a clear value opportunity for me. The problem that I did is again, if I could go back, I would have been clinical about it, is I fell in love with Jalen Rager, and I still love Jalen Rager. I'm not going to backtrack on that. I still love Jalen Reagor. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's Brandon Cooks 2.0. But you could have gotten a lot of equity in moving back and doing that. And I think that's really the thing that I'm going to do much more of, is really be sort of player agnostic and just taking profiles and just trying to get, and basically collect as many assets as you could. Because on top of that, like if you went from, I don't know, take whatever that wide receiver tier was, right? Say that was 108 in Superflex or something like that. That's where it started. If you move to like 112 and you said, all right, I'm going to take the last of those 4 receivers. I'm going to take Herbert, right? I'm just going to go to the last of that. You were going to get either a future first probably to do that, or you were going to get something in the second round and maybe even a little bit more. So what you were going to end up doing was going, and I was on Dylan, but you could have even gotten more into like the Ayuk tier as well. Right? So you could have double hit it. And Ayuk was a tier below those guys because he broke out later and he had some of the community college stuff. But really that's how in hindsight, if I could go back, that's how I would have played it. And I think this year is going to be a year that's plenty doable for that. I think this is going to be a year where you can execute that strategy.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm definitely a big believer in that I know less than I think I know. I think the more humble you come into your rankings and everything else, and just try to do what Jordan's talking about here and just recognize, these are groups of similar guys, and then just, try to get whoever is cheapest, or, try to get 2 or 3 options out of that tier if you can, or whatever the case may be. But, the more you can trade back, the trading back basically allows you to be humble. When you trade up, that's kind of a little bit of a vanity thing. You're saying, I think I know who the 101 or the 102 or whatever, I think I know who they should be. But when you say, you know what, I'm fine going from the 103 down to the 106, 107 and picking up a 111, you're saying, hey, I get 2 shots at this now. And I think I have a better chance with these 2 players for one of them to really turn into something big than 1 shot at the 103.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that quote.
Yeah,
that beat is going to be a header in the Analytics Dynasty 3.0.
A lot of it's public vanity, right? Like it's vanity. When Lamb lands in Dallas, with Dak, it changes the narrative, right? Even though there's still a similar player to Ayuk, right? Jefferson, and they're all like you're saying, but when they land there, the public tries to take advantage of, or thinks they're taking advantage of a situation when actually they're not, because they're similar players.
Yeah, for sure. And the funny part about like Lamb is when you sort of break him down, you're like, all right, like everyone's in love with Lamb, but he's the 3rd wide receiver in snaps, and it's not close, right? Like it's absolutely he's the 3rd wide receiver in snaps on that team, and you're like, what? Right? There's got to be disconnect. But that be humble thing, like that's. Absolutely. And if you sort of like take it to its logical end, right, we're dealing with a game where we have no control over the player's outcome. We have 0 control.
A lot less than we think. Yeah.
Right. Like we can't, like I can't force CeeDee Lamb to get like 80% snap share, right? Like they're playing him 55, 60% snap share. I have no control over that. And I don't know, right? Like I have no idea coming in that that's what's going to happen. So you have that. And there's so much that we don't know, right? Like, and I was joking about this, like we only can see guys once a week. And my joke about this was you get to see him Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. Well, this year you get to see him Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? We're only not getting Friday this year, but you only see him once a week, right? And that's a small sample in terms of what the person is, let alone the player, right? You're not seeing practice. You're not seeing any of these things. And so it's a small sample size, even when we see good things, or even when it's really bad, right? We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? And so I do think if you recognize the fact that it's a limited information game, and so how do you operate in a game where it's much more random and you have a little control about it? And it's not even like poker where you could bluff, right? Like you're playing the outcome, right? So it's a totally random outcome in a lot of these profiles. and it's a limited information game. So I do think that be humble thing's that's going to be definitely, you put that in 2 words, like everything I thought for an entire chapter.
Now, guys,
I'm just here to, just make your job writing a little bit easier. That'll be another 25,000. I'll send you the bill.
a quote by Dan, and then like his handle, and his hair.
Yep.
So let me ask you this, guys, because we've mentioned 2 rookies specifically in this conversation. And I love where this started, Jordan, because we wanted to talk about lessons we've learned in 2020 up to date, like up to this point, because there's still a bit left, right? Is the logo on the helmet something that affects us? Because you think about Swift coming into the season, going to Detroit. You think about Lamb and CEH, who we've talked about, and how much fire that ignited to their values. As much as CD was already there, I mean, it just exploded when he was going to Dallas, right? And you're talking about his target share and the reality of it. So is that maybe a bit of a lesson? Like, let's not get too maybe distracted by the shininess that kind of emphasizes on those players, and maybe stick to, what we know about them as players, or does that make sense? Or is that just coincidence with these players that I'm mentioning?
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. By the way, I have I haven't made this public yet, so you guys are getting it here first. I have released very quietly the Analytics at Dynasty 2021 edition at analyticsatdynasty.com/product/AOD 2021. So you go to analyticsatdynasty.com/shop, and it's the promo code, so you can put in a coupon code or promo code in it, 10% off. Use GOAT, GOAT, all lowercase. So just for here. Just for this, so and it'll come out at the end of January. But yes, I do think, like, the fascinating thing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think last year you could talk about like that rookie class in so many different ways, but the fascinating thing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is you had to believe, everyone was like, oh, it's Brian Westbrook and an Andy Reid offense. The problem with that, and the thing that I never understood about it is, first of all, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not that good a receiving back, right? He ran a ton of routes and got like below average in terms of efficiency on those routes. But when you sort of aggregated it looked really big, right? But he wasn't for an efficiency standpoint, he wasn't that good at LSU. So that was the thing that, from a metric point, and he wasn't that productive either, right? There were some questions about him in terms of all of it. But then he goes to Kansas City, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is Brian Westbrook. Like, this is the situation that everyone's been gearing on. It's going to be huge volume, all this stuff." And the problem with that I always had was, I was like, "All right, well, you just paid $500 million for Patrick Mahomes, right? And when you add up the passing offense, it's about like almost $750 million that they have allocated to their weapons, right? When you include Hill and you include Watkins and you include Kelsey, right? And when you include all those deals, I think it's like $700 million. We're really going to focus an offense around an undersized running back who wasn't that good at catching the ball in college, right? That's what's going to happen. And it just never clicked to me. I'm like, Andy Reid's too good for this. We spent the entire time when he was in Philadelphia complaining he didn't run the ball enough, right? Like, they have more weapons on that Kansas City offense, right? The best player that Donovan McNabb ever played with was that small stretch with T.O. Outside of that, there's like 4 guys on this Kansas City receiving core that would be the best player on that entire Philadelphia
for sure
stretch. And so it just never made sense that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be this big volume guy. It was an easy fade for me. I think it has kind of come to what we thought. Like, all right, are you going to give him 20 carries? Or are you going to throw it 45 times with the guy that's got a chance to be the best that's ever done it? Like, I don't know. Like, I think the Hall of Fame coach is going to figure out which one's the right decision. And it's funny because even you get like the big games and everyone was like, oh, Kansas City ran it down Buffalo's throat. That was intentional, right? Like, they were like, we're going to let Clyde Edwards-Helaire run because hey, every 5.4 yards that he racks up is 3 less than every attempt that Mahomes is going to get, right? Like, so why would you? And they took the bait, and Buffalo almost, Buffalo didn't. They sort of laid an egg on offense, but they took the bait, right? And that's, I think, what people expected out of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It didn't make a ton of sense to me. So now he's in a situation where he's going to be, it's funny because I tend to come full circle on these guys. Like, I was ragging on David Montgomery for his entire profile, and now I'm on him, like, because he's like dropping like a rock. Like, it's hilarious. It's just it's a really funny story, but yeah, so that could be the same situation with Edwards-Helaire. He's going to basically be, he might actually end up paying a discount this year. So that's interesting.
Well, I was just like looking at his snap shares. His first 6 weeks, he's actually in the 60s, high 60s, set up to almost 80% snap share. And the last 5 weeks, he's barely over 50%. So it's actually gone down even more, which is interesting because, you look at the opponents. Is it the opponents? But then you look at his carries in the last 2 weeks, 11 and 14, similar to what he was getting even when he was on the field for 80% of the snaps. So now let me ask you this, as someone who's buying the JTs, the CEHs at a discount right now, pretty much anywhere I can, what do you feel happens, moving forward, like going into the playoffs? Are we going to see this guy maybe solidify himself as more of a productive fantasy player than he has, I guess? I mean, he hasn't been that bad if you're looking at his numbers and his production for a rookie. Do we expect something more out of him going into 2021? Or do you think, if he can pull a nice run through the playoffs right now? Because I'm looking at guys, honestly, from now until the end of the season, Super Bowl, that are going to increase their value, going into the offseason. And is he one of them that, you want that to happen and then sell? Or do you think that he does kind of become what we hoped he did this year? And I'm not saying we as me, because he was not someone I thought would be that this year. But do we get more out of him next year, you think?
So this is a fascinating question. And actually, it was really interesting because the debate in a lot of places, like when you went with trying to break down value, was, do you take Josh Jacobs or do you take Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Right. That was a lot of the debate. And I'm including this in the book, right? This is in the book, and I sort of break it down of why it's not even a close call, why it's Jacobs, right? Because you already know, right? Once you get it, like the most valuable profile in all of fantasy, right? In terms of, I mean, I guess outside of like select quarterback profiles, but really early on, if you get a 21-year-old running back who has day one pedigree and he hits for a top 24 season, like that is as good of a standard as you can get, right? That's as lucrative of a profile as you get in all of fantasy. And Jacobs was one last year. And now we're actually going to get Edwards-Helaire to probably do it. I mean, it would be, I think, virtually impossible for him. He would have to get hurt, right?
His fantasy points per game, he's RB 18 right now.
Right.
Yeah, and I just look at I take them for the whole year, just because I look at the sample on them too, just in terms of like, where do they finish in terms of aggregating? Because I think that he's playing all the games is important too from that profile perspective. So I looked at that, and when you sort of look at that, you're like, all right, it's not even like a close call about how good of a profile that is. Like, it's as good as you can get for Jacobs last year. Well, Edwards-Helaire is going to do it again, and like he actually might cost less, right? So it's going to be an interesting. People were taking him top 5 and season long, and I can't imagine that it feels good. Although I guess if you took Barkley or McCaffrey up at the top, like
better than that.
It could have been worse. But I do think it's going to be a disappointment by the market, and you see guys like Swift going over him already, right? So that's a pretty clear indication that the market didn't react, and he's outscored Swift, right? So what's that say? Yeah, so I think like if he's going to fall into being like into the, I was never going to be on him in terms of like a top 5 running back last year, but if he's going to be like, if he's going to linger around running back 10 or so, Like that's actually that's a really good value. And then you start looking at guys like he could fall into a tier with guys like Nick Chubb, right? And then you're looking at like, all right, that's a 3-year age discount. Like,
I literally swapped Chubb for CH with the Shiva in our FFPC.
Yeah. And like so like again, when you look at profiles, like that makes a ton of sense. Like even though I love Nick Chubb, right? But when you sort of look at the profile, you're resetting the clock, you're getting that platinum standard at a discount. Like, all right, we can do that.
He's going for the ship. I'm going for the 101. So that's why. And I'm pairing him up with like JT Akers, a bunch of youth there.
Yeah. Yep. Explosive upside.
Yep.
JT, we ought to throw that discount code trailer on the crawler down below for Jordan's sake.
Yes, we'll do that. I'll do that. I'll go.
I'm out here marketing for you, Jordan.
Yeah. Oh, my hype man.
I'll go to Nelson. Nelson, just looking at 2020, I mean, you've got a shit ton of rosters. And I'm sure that, investing this much on a yearly basis, you want to learn from your lessons. And I know you're a smart dude. So what's something this year that 2020 you feel that you've already kind of learned and might help you adjust, whether you're looking at roster construction, draft strategy going in next year, best balls, whatever it is, something that you've learned that'll help you going into moving forward?
Well, I'll tell you the thing that, and I did not do a very good job of it, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't, but taking into consideration the backups to the backups to the backups. Because how many times have we seen teams go 3 deep, and I sold myself short on a few teams where, I'm paying the price right now because I didn't look beyond the starter in a couple of situations that I thought were solid situations. Like I said, you've seen a bunch of teams, rolling through running backs, and my best team, by far my best team, and I think it was scored 46 points in Dynasty. My starting running back going into the playoffs is Wayne Gallman, and I didn't treat it right in some situations and got myself caught short. And where I did treat it right, I was too worried about carrying the T.Y. Hiltons of the world and people like that when I should have been paying a little more attention to the depth. And I didn't do a great job of that this year.
Yeah, that's something we talk about often on here. I mean, we love talking. For some reason, Dan, without even trying, we gravitate to running backs. We say often we love action in our leagues. We love active leagues, and the running back position is, I always say, it's kind of like the weed stocks. 6 to 12 months ago, they're just going all over the place, right? When you never know which way that share is going to go. It could literally overnight go to dust. Your James Robinson.
I mean, you look, right. You go there, but I mean, I look at a situation which I did read right early, which changed the outcome in a lot of leagues for me. I mean, who didn't go into the season this season in Miami with Howard and Breida?
Don't remind me anyway, please.
Well, seriously though, but that's what I'm talking about. I didn't look Jordan-esque, Jordan MacNamara-esque. I didn't look deep enough into the crystal ball in some situations, and went, it's going to be Breida, and Howard short yardage is going to score 9 touchdowns, and I'm going to grab him in the 12th round, keep him as my third RB, and meanwhile, the guy they got running down there right now, who is an afterthought, 6th round pick, rookie draft, 2 years ago, it looks pretty good down there. Gaskin looks like a legit player to me. And I didn't read some of those situations as well as I should have.
Yeah, I was totally focused on.
I mean, isn't this the problem with like COVID, right? Like we didn't get any of that information, right? If we saw preseason games, we would have been on James Robinson and Gaskin probably more than we were. Like I don't think that's on you. I think that's a 2020 problem.
Yeah.
But, sorry.
But would we have in that situation? They put a draft pick out and bring Breida in, right? And Howard, looked pretty good in Philly, and He had some big games there, a 32-point game, I think, in week 4 last year, so he wasn't done. And, we saw Gaskin, I'm not sure what RB is, JD. I'm sure you got it pulled up on your screen there, but, he's top 24 back, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. On a per game basis, for sure.
So, and that kind of fits nicely with what we, I guess, promote, if you could say, in regards to roster construction. We love to go deep at running back, get yourself top heavy and maybe slimmer at receiver and go deep at running back for that reason. And Jordan is actually one of the reasons I do that. And even like with best balls, just the value that you can get out of running backs late, like super late in drafts versus grabbing a receiver. Again, from the analytics of Dynasty right there is just something that's paid off so many times. And that's how you end up with these guys on your rosters. Yeah, you miss on probably 60% of them, maybe even more, probably even more. But when you hit and you get yourself one of these guys and they can carry you and give you RB2, RB1-ish numbers, at crucial times of the year,
you win.
We always say, because even if you get the receiver that does produce, that 1 or 2 or maybe 3, if you're lucky, weeks that are up there, they're never in your lineup when you do that. Whereas the running back's more predictable, and that kind of fits, Nelson, with what you're talking about, and just getting yourself deeper, getting those guys that are, like you said, the 3rd or 4th guy on the pecking order.
So let me run this by you, because it goes right to what we're talking about here, right? That great team I have, 45, 46 point team. So my wide receivers on this team, and this has been a stud team for a while, and I've done well here. It's Hill, Adams, Crowder, and Godwin. Okay, so you think that, and then I'm going to tell you my running backs. I got lucky a little bit, hit on Montgomery, who's just doing great. But I'm starting Montgomery, Gallman, and Singletary, who I've used, who's been serviceable, and sitting on DeAndre Swift because I was smart enough to get a pick and trade one of my big guys last year. But it's not a stud, your typical stud running back team. Look out, I don't want to play this guy. I average 170 points a week on this team. So starting to rethink some of my tune a little bit here. Love to have the stud running backs, but you can
I think stud running backs are one of those things that they kind of, like they're they make you relax a little bit more mentally. It's so much easier on the psyche, when you just say, well, I've got, Dalvin Cook or whatever, I've got Alvin Kamara. And that's fantastic. But you know what? If those guys get hurt, or there's a ton of guys that there were a lot of wrong answers too, and the fact that you can pick those wrong answers, and you think you've got something and you really don't. Running back is one of those places where it just works so much better to just kind of let it come to you a little bit. I mean, I'm not against having stud running backs. Don't get me wrong. I'll take them anytime I can get them. But I guess the price I'm willing to pay for those stud running backs has gone down some over the past couple of years, just because I know, that it is possible to piece things together. And sometimes you just gotta, like this year or, this week, I don't know, Ty Johnson, is he going to be that guy who launches, a lot of people into the next round of the playoffs? If Gore doesn't play, there's certainly a chance of that. If you picked up Gallman, who we've talked about several weeks on this show, what a find. The guy's been pumping out about 15 points on average for how many weeks now? And, if you can get a guy who's pumping out 15 points from your running back position, especially if it's your RB2 or a flex or something like that, you're all over it. I mean, you've just got to have guys like that. So, sometimes when you have those stud running backs, it kind of, it makes you too complacent, and you don't have that hunger for running backs that you need to have, throughout the entire season. You almost have to have that desperation, I think.
You know what? You said something that it kind of hit me here. So Dynasty's a weird game, right? Because, we're done in 3 weeks and you're not putting another lineup out there until next September, right? So that gives you a lot of time to look at your team. And while you're tweaking and thinking long and thinking wrong, it's just easier on your eyes. So I got running back covered. I got Kamara here. I'll fill in with a couple pieces. And when you don't have that stud running back, you got 7 months to look at that team. How am I going to acquire a stud running back? I can't compete. It's not true. It's not true.
Right. Yeah. There's going to be a James Robinson out there, a Miles
Gaskin. Yeah.
Yep.
There is.
So you talked about Gallman. I'm going to selfishly ask a question because I want to transition into a couple guys. Miles Sanders is an interesting guy right now. Just disaster out there in Philly.
Yeah, I got 10 pages written for this.
Nelson, I'm coming back. We'll start back to you because I'm in my 500 where I'm coming in the 3rd seed. So I actually have to play this week because I fucked up some starting lineup moves a couple weeks ago. So Gallman or you putting Miles back in against the number 1 defense?
This is easy for me. I made a decision today. I'm not going to think long and think wrong here. I made a decision today. I'm not playing him in any of those
Miles
3-6 seeds. I'm not playing him. He's on the field. I don't have the exact stats. I'm guessing he's on the field, and I watch these games closer than most with Philly. I don't think he's on the field 50% of the time. I watched 4 series in a row, 4 in a row that he came down as the 3rd down back. Last weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem. Okay, so there's something else going on. Well, listen, Philly's broken. We all know that. It's broken. I cannot, in a one and done 3 seed to 6 seed, one and done, I got to score points. I can't do it.
So before I pass to the other guys to answer, because I think that there's a couple guys that are really interesting cases right now. Do you move what Miles, as much as his value right now is diminished a bit, are you moving that to position yourself better if you can? I know FFPC you can't dynasty wise, but let's say you still can. Is that a piece that you would take a bit of a loss in order to improve yourself, or do you say, you know what, my roster is good, I'm gonna try to maneuver with my Gallmans and my an interesting question. I think people own him right now, asking themselves.
Thought about it. So he is not movable for me. Okay, he's too young, too good, not beat up, not banged up, and there is a 50% chance that coach, that Peterson, will not be there next year, around 50-50. So you got to understand something. Peterson does not put the running backs on the field in Philly. Deuce Staley, the assistant head coach, is in charge of the running backs. All the way back to the Super Bowl, he won a Super Bowl with Ajayi, Blunt, Clement, rotating. It worked. Put a ring on his finger.
Okay? Oh, you remember.
Okay, so yeah, so he doesn't change that. That's
really watching paint dry.
Well, I got it paint dried right there. That's right there.
Nelson just wanted to flex his goat shirt.
That and representing, right? So, but Deuce Staley rotates his running backs. That's always been his thing. Who brings in Jordan Howard, who was cut, and gives him Miles Sanders carries in the middle of a ball game?
Does Jalen Hurts' success keep him there though? Save his job? If the quarterback comes in and starts doing something special?
I don't know.
You think it's you don't know.
I don't know. I don't. It's so broken. I can't even guess. But going back to your Sanders thing, 50% chance they bring in a coach and say, this is a stud guy, give him the ball. I certainly wouldn't want to have moved him for
anyone you bring in, you hope becomes that. You know what I mean? So Jordan, I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. I know you're big on draft capital and holding valuable pieces. If you're going for it right now and maybe you're a little light at the running back position, are you willing to take a bit of a loss on that value, or are you like Nelson and you're holding tight?
Yeah, I mean the profile is pretty good. I don't know what the problem in Philly is. I think I know, and pledge not to say this person's name anymore, but I'll just say he's newly on the bench. And I think he's the problem. I do. What's quizzical to me in this whole offense is if you look at like Green Bay, especially early when they were non-Devontae Adams Green Bay, like I don't think there's much debate that Philly had a better offensive like set of weapons, right? Like you had Goddard, you had Zach Ertz, and that was before the injury. But like when you looked at what Green Bay was doing, like it was a lot of, hey, through the running backs, like people, dump all over Jamal Williams, but like they were using him and they were using Aaron Jones, and they got some stuff out of Tanyan and some, there was some other stuff going on there with some of the ancillary receivers. But on paper, there's no doubt that Philly had a better offense in terms of just the weapons that were there. Devontae Adams moves the earth in terms of his gravitational force, so now it's pretty clear that they're the better offense in terms of the weapons. But what did Green Bay do? Like they got a ton out of Aaron Jones. They got a ton out of Jamal Williams. Like they did a lot of different things, and there's just none of that in Philly, which seems like if you were going to be like, all right, we need to scheme some stuff up, like it seems totally like the easiest way to do that for them is to get the ball like almost in the same way that Washington does, like get Boston Scott out there, like in some of that McKissick role, get Miles Sanders running some of the Aaron Jones and the receiving game stuff. Like do that.
Jordan, let me ask you a question on that. Okay. What if this coaching staff isn't able to? I think you're thinking back, and everybody forgets.
Yeah.
Frank Reich ran that offense. Okay. It was not Peterson. It was Frank Reich ran that offense. And when he left, Wentz has not been the same since. If you look at him, okay, you play back the last couple of games, you play back the last couple of years, okay? If his first read isn't there, okay, he cannot go to his second and third progressions without making a mess. He mentally can't handle it. I don't know if he's been hit too many times. I mean, God bless him, he's been hit a little bit this year, last couple of years, but he does not have the quick enough mind to come off and dump it to the running back like J.D. McKissick. He doesn't know Sanders is over there. In Philly, you get to see stuff that you don't see outside of Philly. Plays wide open. People are just wide open. He doesn't pull the trigger, okay? He's scared to pull the trigger, and when he does, he's late all the time. All of his throws are late. His short throws, nobody's hitting stride. It's a late thinking process with him, and that's a problem, and that's really concerning.
Yeah, and the funny part to me is the defense for him has always this year, coming into this year, has been, or earlier this year, I should say, the offensive line's bad, right? And okay, like let's just accept that as being true for a second. I there was reasons to believe that actually wasn't true, but let's just accept it as true. Like he does take a ton of time to throw the ball. Like he's especially early on in the season was ranked really high in terms of time to throw. So that was one thing. But the other thing is like even when you look at like go back to prior years, like he had never had an offense ranked outside the top offensive line in pass blocking ranked outside the top 12.
Right.
And I was actually in a conversation with someone today. They were like, well, we've seen what Wentz's ceiling is. And it was actually a Wentz or Jameis Winston debate. And it was actually really interesting because like when you think about those two guys, like there's kind of a lot of different narratives going on. But when you look at Carson Wentz's stats compared to Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz is a yard less per attempt on his career than Jameis Winston was. A yard. That's a huge number. It's a huge number. And so when you sort of look back to that MVP caliber year, I tend to think it was just high variance, right? Like you just got everything that broke right. And even when what concerns me about Wentz too is like, even when you go, like it's always been, oh, he doesn't have great weapons. Like when you look at the weapons that he has, and then compare them when they don't play with him, right? So you look at some of the, yards per attempt and some of these AYA numbers, you can compare him against Carson Wentz being the quarterback and anybody else.
Like Nick Foles.
Nick Foles, and actually Deshaun Jackson has a lot of sample. Alshon Jeffrey had some good ones. Like there was some guys that have actually a lot of sample with other guys. It's not even close to what some of these, and it's not like we're talking about like star quarterbacks that were compared. Like it was Jay Cutler, right? With Alshon Jeffrey. And, you sort of look at some of these guys and Wentz is always at the bottom in terms of efficiency. And that's predating this year, right? So I've always been, I think the excuses for him have been pretty long. And I don't think he's been, and I think the other thing too is like, we could debate Carson Wentz for a while, I'm sure, but as like a dynasty tip, don't be what Philly is. Philly's constantly playing on credit, like constantly. And like they honestly, like if you take a look at, like you can go about the Dak Prescott, like you can talk a lot about the Dak Prescott deal and should they have signed him and should they have not. If you're going to invest $130 million, like honestly, would you rather pay, right? Would you rather pay whatever Carson Wentz is, what is it, 4 years, 130 or something like that? Yes. You'd rather pay that when you got the deal 2 years ago or whenever they signed that deal with him. And it hasn't gone good since then. Or would you rather wait a couple years, find out, like have more sample on a guy like that, Dak Prescott? And it's a bad example because he got hurt, but then pay him, I don't know, $5 to $10 million more a year, right? Like I think you would much rather be in the Dak Prescott situation, right?
Let me say this. Their owner, Jeffrey Lurie's learned some mistakes. Okay. He kept Andy Reid a couple years too long. Okay. Wasted time. He's not going to give that to Peterson. Peterson probably doesn't make it out of this year. You got to remember, they spent a second-round pick on a quarterback. Okay. And that's because they see what we're talking about, but they've seen it and they do know about it. Yeah, they have to trot him out there. But listen, the public is just wrong. No, he's a great quarterback, got him into the playoffs last year. Bullshit. He was horrible for 12 games and played 4 donkeys the last 4 games to win the division. Okay? So it's crap. He's thrown crap up there ever since that, close to MVP season before he got hurt. He's been junk out there. His mind doesn't see the game quick enough. And that's why he doesn't dump the ball off to Miles Sanders, because he can't get to a third progression and get the dump off, because I don't think he knows where the running back is. So instead he panics and a lot of the sacks. And I don't want to hear the crap about the offensive line. The worst offensive line in football is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm watching Joe Burrow look like a pretty good quarterback there. Okay, so good quarterbacks can make up for poor offensive line play. Wentz looks so bad. He's playing like an arena football quarterback right now. I just tell how it is, man. That's what we do at Dynasty Depot.
And that's a good point about, that a quarterback can make a line look worse than it is. Russell
Wilson, right?
Yeah. And they can also make a line look better than it is. Whereas it kind of works the other way, I think, at running back, where a good line can make a running back look a lot better than he is, or a lot worse than he is. But you don't often see the running back making the line look a lot better or a lot worse. So I just kind of think that's the easiest way to think about offensive lines. When I'm trying to decide, if there's problems on this offense or whatever, if it's involved in the passing game, I'm probably going to put it more on the quarterback. And if it's involved more in the running game, I'm probably going to put it more on the offensive line.
I agree with you.
All right, Dan, I don't even know why I did a show sheet today, because it's so much better when we don't, follow.
It's always my fault. It's always my fault.
No, it's not a fault. I almost didn't do one, but I feel bad, not doing one. So I'm like, you know what, I'll throw it out there and we follow what we do. Anyways, guys, this is the perfect conversation right now. I'm gonna do a quick shout out to one of our partners, and just this time of year, if you want to help those in need, So if you're watching right now, buy a holiday sweater. The goat gear is out there right now at Viridian Global /collections/goat-district. And if you buy a holiday sweater, all the profits go to the Salvation Army. Obviously, with COVID, Salvation Army usually they collect, physically, like they're in stores or a Walmart, liquor store. And unfortunately, this year they can't do that. So we thought we would help them out by putting all the proceeds towards the Salvation Army during any sales of these holiday sweaters. So go get yourself one. The Goat gears there, the Goat District one, and there's a True North one as well. And any other Goat gear that you go out and get yourself, you see Nelson wearing that sweet T-shirt that he's modified for his pipes. But drop a picture of you and your Goat gear and what you ordered or what you got. And Alex from FFPC, another one of our great sponsors, they've given 2 entries into 2 of the funnest things you will do during the NFL playoffs. The NFL Playoff Challenge on the FFPC. And you have no excuse because they've got 2 different price points, Dan. $35, $200.
Fun.
Like I missed one season where I didn't do the Playoff Challenge, and it was not even close to as exciting to watch the playoffs. You can add anything you want to that. And Nelson, I know you're part of that as well.
Love it.
So go to Viridian Global. Check out the Goat gear. If you get yourself a little holiday sweater and help someone in need, that's awesome. If you get any of their Goat gear, send us a pic and check out the other pods. A lot of your favorite pods have their gear on there. Those guys are rocking a sweet site right now. So check that out, guys. You guys have a bit more? Anyone have a curfew right now? They gotta head out for. All right, look, we went off course, but we are here for the people. And the people sent us, they tag us on their trades and we ask them to, and we love to talk about their trades and their tweets. So let's put the rest of the show sheet aside, check it later. We'll go to Dynasty Trader Duck, at Trader_Duck. He's been sending us some good ones. This one's I thought was interesting because one of these guys is extremely relevant playoffs right now. And the other one is, if I'm a non-contender, is extremely relevant. 12-team Dyno, Superflex, PPR League. I'll go to you first, Jordan. Cortland Sutton or Brandon Cooks? This is for
Brandon
contender.
Cooks.
Bam.
Brandon Cooks. It doesn't matter. Brandon Cooks.
It doesn't matter. Nelson?
I'm going the same way.
Wow, I love it. See, this is why you listen to the GOAT District, because if they just looked at the poll results after 112 votes, they would be wrong. Exactly. I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, it's got to be Brandon Cooks. I mean, for a contender,
What's the
there's no
result?
It's way. Oh yeah, I know. I totally built up, and then I totally changed the screen. But it's actually 27%, just under 28% for Brandon Cooks, and 67.9%. So, if you guys want to go out there and make a little trade with your Cortland Sutton, I don't have any on my rosters right now because anything I had I would have traded already. But yeah, that's a nice little benefit now. And hold value even going into the offseason, where I'm sure you can, package them up in a deal and make something happen. I'm going to do a quick shout out. I'm bad at remembering to do these, but I figure I'd drop this in our little DM so I could remember. Our boy Uriah at Just Uriah FF, just shouting out the GOAT District as one of his favorite podcasts that he listens to every single episode, and we appreciate him. We appreciate you if you listen to us on the weekly. Guys, anything going on in your leagues? Nelson, I know you're in a gajillion leagues.
Gajillion.
Anyone have a nice little trade? I have like a little one that I can throw on the table, but I wanna let the guests get the mic first.
No, I don't have any trades going on. I sent you a couple that were kind of interesting that went down in the last week or so, 2 weeks before the trading deadline. You picked those up today?
Yeah. So you got one of them was Henry and Big Ben for a top.
I moved, on not a total rebuild, but team that came in 7th spot. It's a tweener team, 750 team. I moved Derrick Henry. Oh, I already know Jordan's going to like this. I moved Derrick Henry and Big Ben for a top 4 guaranteed pick and Herbert. I was pretty happy about that. The contender guy was pretty happy about it. What's your thoughts on that one, Jordan?
Wow. Is this super flex?
No.
1 QB.
Nah. 1 QB.
Yeah, I mean with the I'm probably not going to do a ton of trading into the top of this class just because I think that I have a theory on rookie drafts that unless there's running backs in them, like they're not great. Is generally my takeaway in terms of meaningfulness. I will say though, you reset the clock, and I think I've been stunned by how valuable Herbert is. Like, and it's like that's a good example again of stuff we talked about earlier, right? The spread between him and Burrow never it was too much. And that's something that we should, and now like lo and behold, it's flipped and we could debate, how much that's actually should be, right? And how sticky ranking should be and all this stuff. But I think it's interesting. Like he's really hot. So that's and then you reset and you can build with that 104 as well. I think it's, I think depending on team direction, I can see it both ways.
It was fair. Let me throw another. I'm interested to hear what Jordan's got to say about this other one, Danny. Jonathan Taylor, 2021 late. Dylan Sutton, Irv Smith for Josh Jacobs, Jonnu, and Diggs for a win now.
Wow. It's a big trade.
So you did JT, AJ
JT,
Dillon.
a late 21-1.
Okay.
Dylan Sutton, Irv for Jacobs, Jonnu, Diggs.
Tight end premium.
Yeah,
I think Irv Smith is essentially worthless.
I agree.
I love Stephon Diggs. I think in terms of looking at profiles, like this is a fascinating trade because Diggs is going to be in this really weird scenario. I think you have like a lot of different ways you can go. And like, if you're just like, hey, I have a theory and I'm just going to try and execute it. Like you could go late, you could go with some high level older wide receivers like Hopkins and Adams and these types of guys and sort of like use that premise, right? That's one way you could go about it. You could sort of go with the really young guys, right? With the Lambs and the Jefferson and these types of, Claypool, like these types of guys. Or you could sort of try and catch a middle and go with like the Diggs, that sort of age range. And I think there's a lot of optionality where there hasn't really been that because young wide receivers haven't been good recently. So that's a fascinating, like I think Diggs is going to be a fascinating discussion in the offseason. And I love Jacobs. So the problem is I love so many players in this deal. It makes me feel it's like I'm picking. I love Taylor. I love Dillon. You won't find a bigger fan of AJ Dillon than me. So I think this one's fair. But that's funny because if I was if I wasn't as high on Taylor, if I wasn't as high on Dillon, this would be like a smash for Jacobs, but you just caught a guy who's really high on the guys on the other side. But I like especially if you're contending, I love the Jacobs Diggs deal with Jonnu. You just hope that Jacobs can get back healthy.
That's
Jordan.
Yeah.
How do you like this thing right here? Rookie card right here.
Rookie fever.
There you go. I'm huge into sports cards right now, like football cards. I don't know if anybody's like knowledgeable and into it, please DM me because I'm working on a special project, but I am balls deep right now. Football cards, there's a huge movement going on. And if you're in fantasy, just do a little research and check it out, man, because there's a huge correlation. There's a site right now that I'm on where you can buy and trade cards on the site just right there. You drop $50, $100. And as these guys play on the weekends, their values fluctuate. So it's literally like stock shares. that you're buying and selling. And I've been
Trading Card Depot. Let me get that working, JD. Trading Card Depot.
There you go. The Dynasty Depot.
I'll have that slide up by the end of the week, brother.
The code at the bottom, right? But no, I know Jordan's a big Dylan fan, and he actually got me on him, and I've got a couple shares because of Jordan. And I'm hoping that, he gets an opportunity during the playoffs. Like I said, looking at these playoff teams, he's definitely a piece where I could see his value increasing between now and the off season. Anything else, guys? I made like a little trade. Dan, we talked about tight ends earlier in the Super Goat. It's not a tight end premium, but I moved Fuller. I was desperate, like super desperate for tight end. And other than moving a significant piece that I needed, I moved Fuller for Ebron and a late third. And I'm pretty happy with him, man. Like giving me 13, 14 points at that position right now in a non-tight end premium, I will take that all day because I lost Jonnu. And I literally had nobody else other than Njoku.
Right. Yeah, I think, when you're going for a championship and you have these guys who just, for whatever reason aren't going to be producing for the rest of the year, whether you're talking Cortland Sutton or, Will Fuller or whoever it might be, those are the no-brainer deals because they're just, they're a dead spot on your roster for this year. Certainly they have future value, but on the other hand, if you can get that championship now, in the way that most leagues pay out, you're probably paying for, 4 or 5 years anyway, sometimes 6 years, and that's got a lot of value. I mean, if you can pay your next 6 years of entry fees, just by winning right now, you can go through like 2 rebuilds in 6 years, and win it a couple more times if you have to. But if you're smart about how you're cycling your assets, you shouldn't really have to anyway. But I do think this. Well, let me let you other guys weigh on this. But this kind of brings up something that we had in the DM thread that I wanted to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, no, I was. That's how I was going to finish off. But for sure.
Okay,
guys, anything to add on that trade? It's not anything crazy, but just anything on the players or the move just to win now versus. All right, Dan, drop it. Oh, Jordan, here it comes.
I didn't catch what it was. It was Fuller, and you got Ebron.
I sent Fuller for Ebron in the late third.
Man, I love me some. You're trading between all of my children. I love Will Fuller. I think Ebron is so he's so underrated. And like it might not even look that pretty, but man, he produces. Like he's top 6 on the season right now.
Coming into the season, him and Diggs were probably the 2 most undervalued receivers. Going back to Diggs there.
Jordan, it's the first year he's played. It's the first year that he hasn't got hurt, and it's also the first year he's been suspended.
Yeah.
So you could say what you want there, but 1 and 1 usually equals 2, right? So I'm staying away from him. He can't stay.
I love me some, and I love Ebron too. I think Ebron's just.
He's been fantastic,
underrated. So
he's been very consistent for a tight end.
Fantastic.
Like he's been extremely consistent. Like I said, if he can give you 12 to 15 points every week in a non-tight end premium. For the price you got him at, whether you drafted him or you traded for him, that's pretty legit, man.
Yeah. I mean, the drops are frustrating, but you got to get targets to get drops.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at that offense with Big Ben throughout the years with Heath Miller. You start running the Heath Miller, Jesse James. He's got a lot more talent than those guys do, and he looks good, man. I got a lot of them.
50 times a game, 51, 52 times a game. So that it's going to be spread around nicely. Yeah. All right, Dan, I'm going to let you introduce this little thread that I think is a very interesting conversation, and it's a great way to end off what we've done today.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I think that we're talking about here is, how do you buff your team for the playoffs? How do you get ready to, try to go out there and win that championship? And, like there was a trade that was mentioned on Twitter a few days ago. Actually, I guess a few weeks ago at this point, CeeDee Lamb for Keenan Allen. And the team that was trading away Lamb is picking up Allen, trying to win a championship. And, I think it's an interesting question just how often those kind of trades actually end up working out. Because we're saying, okay, well, we know what their past performance is, but we don't know what their future performance is. Is it fair to go ahead and extrapolate this out for Keenan Allen? Is this a good deal for now? Is it a good deal on into the future? And I know Jordan had some thoughts on this, so I'll just kind of spin it towards him and let him open up the conversation. We can jump in as we see fit.
I always wonder what the importance of value is, right? And this is something I'm talking about in 2021 edition. I think we get over our skis in terms of value. And so people want to build like a really valuable roster. But I think it borders on sexy roster syndrome, right? Because, and I think that people think like guys like CeeDee Lamb are, his dynasty dominance is a foregone conclusion. I don't think that. And the numbers don't bear that out. And so you see a lot of these narratives on Twitter where it'll be folks saying, hey, it's this is 100% proven strategy, which is you trade the guy at 28 years old because he 100% of the time drops in valuation. That's actually not true. It's actually about 12% of the time they retain their valuation. When you look at guys, especially at the top tier, I was a little bit more selective in terms of who I use, but like you're talking about elite assets. And really, like when you actually break it down, how much they lose value, it's like a coin flip of whether or not they're going to be within a round, right? So how much do we really care if a guy moves down like 6 spots in valuation, right? Mm-hmm. It's a solution in search of a problem. And so I think that's the case with Michael Thomas. I think that's the case with a lot of these guys. You get it's like Julio. I mean, I've used the Julio example forever. Like Julio for the rest of his entire dynasty career is going to be worth more to you than you could trade him for. Mm-hmm. And the question is like, I don't know. Like I own my house and I know what I paid for it. And I don't know what it's worth right now because I'm not in the market to sell it. Right. I suspect it's worth more just because that's the way property values typically go. But it's not something I pay that much attention to day to day. Until I go to sell it, right? It only matters when I go to sell it. And so that's really with, if you're going to have a guy like Julio and I'm just going to be in on it, or Keenan Allen or, Michael Thomas, any of these older guys, like market value really doesn't matter all that much. And so that's the thing that to me, really, I think people make too much of a focus on that. And there's some actually data to back it up too, which is like, hey, you see some of these Twitter polls like, hey, what's the best part of Dynasty? And people are like, 30% of people are making, it's making trades. And 36% of people are saying it's winning championships. Like that's a messed up place to be, right? Like if you're trying to chase that, like it's pretty clear that like there's value on the, hey, let's try and win side of that equation, right? Like, so you're trying to play a game that's inefficient, right? It's suboptimal. And you're trying to play this game that's really not that predictable. And I mean, like, if you gave, again, I'll just use the Herbert Burrow example. If you surveyed, hey, who's going to be worth more in the next year, 100% of people would have said Burrow. I mean, I don't know, maybe you would have contrarians that would have, maybe it's 95%, right? But like, there was not going to be this big movement that it was going to be Herbert. And now you flip forward, 6 months from that time, and it's completely different, right? And so what are we trying to do? We're trying to predict that. Like, so that's part of the thing that I think with dynasty valuation that's misplaced. And so that's my rant.
Guys, Max Leonidas, rate my team. I don't know if he's gloating, flexing, but I already see like some there's some what ifs in there. So Mahomes, CMC, Zeke, Adams, Woods, Kelsey, and at flex AJ Brown, Myles Gaskin, or Mostert. I guess he's asking, like, going into the playoffs, is this a legit contender in your opinion? Maybe go around and let us know. Nelson,
we can move quick on this, JD. Yeah, you win. Let's see the next thing. This guy wins. We can move fast here.
Well, if CMC plays, I mean, we still don't know.
What I was going to say. Yeah, it's very dependent on
that. And Zeke is kind of he's struggling.
exactly.
You do have Gaskin you could plug in at RB right there and throw AJ Brown and flex, and you're still probably going to win.
It's still a great roster. I mean, when you start with Mahomes and Kelsey and Adams, you got those three players, and then you can throw in all these other players. It's you're sitting.
Bobby Trees is tough too, man. I'm not sure about him Thursday, but Bobby Trees is a good guy to have on your roster, man. You talk about one of those mid Keenan Allen type. I'm sure Jordan likes him, right? Bobby Trees feels like a Jordan guy to me.
It's undervalued, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Probably for the rest of his career.
Right.
I mean, and Jordan's right. Once you get those guys on your roster, I mean, there's just really no point in trying to move them. Unless you think you're embarking on a rebuild that's going to take like longer than 2 years. And if you're taking on a rebuild that you think is going to take longer than 2 years, what's wrong with you?
And guys, just to wrap this up, I'm just looking at some of the stuff we just recently talked about and how we started this show. Looking at Diggs and Zeke specifically, are these not two perfect examples? If you place Diggs coming into the season and where Zeke is right now, like keeping it as simple as possible, the buy low, sell high aspect, and then that 25-year-old cliff with the running backs. It keeps coming up over and over. And that's another reason, as much as I love, just like you, Jordan, I love Chubb. I love me some Chubb, but he's 25 and he's, like you said, yeah, maybe I'm losing value in the initial getting CH, but for me, looking long-term at that position, specifically with the running backs, just keep an eye on those. It's the one position I'm more cautious of age.
Yeah,
is that running back, and you have to, right? And like I said, that 25 is. I remember back in the day, it was 27 was the cliff. 24 to 27 was kind of that cliff. You read those DLF articles back in the day when they were like the only dynasty site, and that's what it was, right? Whereas now, you want these guys when they come out through the draft, and that's why, like Jordan is saying, it's a little disappointing that this upcoming draft is not as fruitful with the running back position. But yeah, man, you want to keep cycling through those running backs that you have on your roster. You don't hold them too long. So just another quick lesson that keeps repeating itself year in year out, and happened again in 2020, and with Diggs even before the season started. Guys, always a blast. Like I said, I'm just gonna delete all the show sheets on my laptop. It'll make room. It won't buffer as much because I'll have some more RAM available to make this thing run. But yeah, man, again, there's a reason we brought these two guys today, and it's just the goodness that they bring, and just a couple of great guys. So I'll go to Jordan first this time. Jordan, again, dude, one of my favorite guys to talk about. I know Dan feels the same. We appreciate you coming on again. Remind the people of the goodness. You dropped a little exclusiveness for the GOATs. We appreciate that, but remind them what's coming up and how they could take advantage.
Yeah, Analytics Dynasty 2021 edition's coming up in January. And listen, if you're getting prepared for 21 rookie drafts, right? If you're out of your playoffs, right? Now's the time to start studying up. 2020 edition of Analytics Dynasty is still available on the website, and it's not specific to the year, right? So you go in, it's stuff that's evergreen, right? So all that stuff, and I think that the 2020 edition, I'm not sure I'll be able to beat it. Like, it'll be different. There'll be some other stuff, but in terms of actionable stuff, like that's probably the most actionable stuff I'll ever be able to write is that book. So go ahead and get that, and analyticsdynasty.com/shop, and on the 2021 edition, use the GOAT promo code and you get 10% off.
Yeah, I compare it to the super system. If anyone out there is from the poker background like I am, of Dynasty, because it's based on theory. It's like that philosophy course that you take at first year university. They could teach that shit for the next 500 years and it's always relevant, and that's what Jordan is writing. And I don't see that anywhere else in Dynasty and even in fantasy right now. So take advantage of the code, take advantage of Jordan. Like the fact that you guys have access, that we have access to this great mind. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm not fluffing it up, because he is a great mind. I mean, dude, he's on book number 3 I
got to stop you here. The checks are still going to me. Okay.
I'm really rich.
I got it signed with Jordan, so you're out in the cold.
No, like honestly, man, like even Dan, Nelson, Jordan, like we try to keep bringing the goodness, and I hope we've done that today. These guys are killing it. Dan, before I close this out, anything you want to add, brother?
No, I think you said it really well, and I meant what I said in my tweet. We have a couple guys who are really changing the Dynasty game here. Jordan with what he's doing with the analytics at Dynasty. I mean, it's just as you said with the the super system. When you get that team construction right, when you understand those basic building blocks, it just keeps paying off year after year after year after year. Because it just keeps you from making as many mistakes. And, we're going to be wrong a lot because, as we were talking about earlier, we don't have control over the game. We don't have control over the players, but what we do have control over is just making good bets. And that's what the analytics of Dynasty does. And then we got Nels here, who is, changing the game in a completely different way with the Dynasty Depot. And I'm really excited to see what that does to the game and, how that impacts, how we play Dynasty, how we handle the off season, and just adding that game within a game, of being able to flip these franchises over, have a competition for, who can do the most with, whatever they have at any given buy-in level. I think that's a fantastic way to play. It just kind of opens up a whole new aspect of Dynasty football. So, these guys definitely are, they're out at the forefront in very different ways, and it's just a pleasure to have them on.
Thank you.
He's the overhyped sleeper, but I say it every week, man. He's the underhyped analyst, and he's Dan the man. And what he's saying is true. And just to kind of finish off on the Depot. And this is, again, like we only bring in partnerships that Dan and I, like there's no one that we deal with or that we promote to you guys that we don't use or promote ourselves. And Dynasty Depot, it gives you another purpose. Like we were on the open bar, Dan, last night, and we talked about how frustrating it is to set your starting lineup, to build that perfect dynasty. And because you start, whether it's Kyle Rudolph over Logan Thomas or Herbert over Carr or whatever it is, that move you made, you thought you built the perfect dynasty. It doesn't always go your way. And what the Dynasty Depot is offering is kind of that outlet that wasn't there before. It's another purpose to build your roster, to keep building that dynasty roster to perfection, because even though you didn't make it past the first round because your team blew it, whatever the reasons, there's still someone out there that might be looking at it and thinking, you know what, I can take this thing next year and go all the way. So check it out, man. Dynasty Depot, check out the analytics of Dynasty. It's a no-brainer. If you're listening to us, there is zero reason why you shouldn't be checking out Jordan's book, and use the code GOAT. Use League Mates over at Dynasty Depot. Remember to use the code GOAT at MyBookie. We haven't talked about them tonight because we wanted to focus on some of our partners, but go to MyBookie, go to Monkey Knife Fight, and use the code GOAT, and you'll get a lot of goodness with that on your initial deposit. Check out Viridian, help out the Salvation Army during this time of need, and all the proceeds for the GOAT holiday sweaters go to those that we speak of. This is a big week, guys. This is the one. Like, this is why you played all season. If you're in, you're in, and you do whatever it takes, man. That's all I got to say. Like, at the end of the day, worry about tomorrow. You got all off season to get that late first round draft pick, or that, early second round. You got all off season, man, to make that magic happen. Especially if you're listening to us, we'll help you get back that draft pick. Good luck. Don't get too cute. May all your matchups bring you W's. Thanks for listening. We'll check you all later.
Goat District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So What you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.